Okay, it's 1:30 by the clock on the wall. I'm gonna go ahead and call to order the Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 meeting of the Rockdale Planning and Zoning Commission. Could I have roll call, please?
Chair Williams.
Here.
Vice Chair Ratliff.
Here.
Commissioner Miles.
Here.
Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Barcheck. Commissioner Slobod.
Here.
And Council Liaison Starnes is
He's
Right there.
here somewhere.
meeting with the city manager. Yeah.
That one.
So, with that done, we do have enough for a quorum, correct?
Correct.
All right, we'll move right along then. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did he want to do an invocation today? You don't have anyone to volunteer to do an invocation? Citizens communications?
Nothing today, sir.
There's nothing today. We're going to. Oh, let me get back on the right pages here.
Right past the green.
Yeah, probably. Oh, we might get an invocation. Do you want to do an invocation today?
Certainly.
All right.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this glorious day, for all the blessings that you've bestowed upon us, Lord, for all that we remembered and were thankful for on this past celebration of Thanksgiving. Lord, please continue to watch over our families and all the residents of Rockdale. Lord, bless this meeting and all of the discussions had herein and the decisions that are made. Please help us to make all of those decisions in accordance with your will. For all of this we pray in your Son's name, amen.
Amen. We were going to do a presentation, but both people had conflicting schedules, and so we'll move the presentation to another meeting. And then, Ben, are you guys prepared to do a presentation from the last city council meeting?
Sure.
I wasn't there. I was ill.
So I don't have the old pack in front of me, so I'll do my best. But the parking on unimproved surfaces was approved without the moratorium. And what they approved was to allow for that grandfather status on existing. So as you guys have seen it, it was approved.
Exactly as you recommended.
The second item was regarding open and outdoor storage. If you can recall, we drafted an ordinance to acknowledge those existing outdoor uses where people have outdoor sales such as Tractor Supply. And we wanted to acknowledge it and allow it, and then also put a permit for those that may not meet that definition to essentially apply. That was approved as you guys approved it. What else was there on there? There was a hefty agenda. The noise ordinance.
Board appointment.
There were no board appointments, so that got scratched.
Right.
Now, the noise ordinance did change since you guys last seen it. So if you can recall, when you last saw it, we had it broken down by the different allowed decibel range for each zoning classification. The police department ran a test, and they found it more sufficient to just have a blanket. So we still acknowledge the fairground use, central area, downtown district use, that they have their own exemptions. They still meet a standard, but they're exempt from the blanket statement. And then essentially there's a blanket, and I can't recall what that limit is.
Yeah,
But I'd
they
have
were
to
having
look.
trouble trying to set a
But they ran,
agreeable decibel.
yeah, they
limit,
ran
right?
tests and they raised it a little bit, if I can recall. Yeah, 75 and
At the
80 or
curve,
something
at
along
the-
those lines. Because they defined daytime and nighttime. So daytime had an allowed use, and a nighttime came down a little bit, and I can't remember what it came down to. So that was a change from when you last saw it.
Correct. Yeah.
Republic Ridge zoning got approved as you read it, and then they've also had a significant other items that were approved along with it to help that development go forward, such as a TERS, PID, things that you've seen in Cornerstone, but you just haven't seen in quite a while.
So that was the development agreement for Republic Ridge was approved, and in that development agreement, it outlined the TERS and the PID participation by the city. The TERS in the development agreement was agreed to at 50%, and then the PID, and the TERS was only going to be used to buy down the PID assessment, but in that they've also agreed to a number of other improvements off-site, including improvements to Texas Street, including Belton Avenue from Texas Street all the way, I think, to Green Street. Off-site sewer improvements necessary, both to serve the subdivision and will be beneficial to the city at large. And so all of those are moving forward at this next meeting on next Monday. We'll have the public hearing for the TERS and the PID. I'm also going to be appearing before the County Commissioners Court. It looks like that they will participate to a smaller extent in the TERS, which will help reduce our TERS commitment, so.
That doesn't come back to us, that's going straight for second reading then, for council, correct?
What's being presented, there is a, I think it's an ordinance for the TERS and a resolution for the PID. The TERS ordinance will be a first reading in December and a final reading in January. On the TERS ordinance. Or no, I think it's the other way around. I think the PID is an ordinance. So one of them will have a first and a second reading.
There was a final replat, Mike Richards' property?
Yes, so that got passed. They removed that sign variance, if you can recall that. And so there is some action that you would like to know about on that sign variance. It was a separate item. The council approved it if it would be a monument sign. And council has asked that we amend the sign code to not allow for pole signs any longer and to allow for monument signs and similar signage. And so staff will start working on that here in the upcoming month so you can see an amendment and we can work through that.
And a final replat for Brian Borough, Calhoun Street?
That passed as you, upon your recommended changes.
And then it was Randy Thompson, so
Randy Thompson was the same. They approved the variances. They didn't have to look at the plat because you looked at the plat, but they did approve the variances. The variance had to change a little bit due to they were giving the setbacks of an actual house. So house setbacks are different than accessory structure setbacks. And so I've just ran those numbers and they changed. Actually, I think y'all saw maybe 7 or 8 variances and they only needed 3.
Oh,
So it was a lot less than what we thought, which was good.
excellent.
And then the last one that you may want to know about is Dollar Tree was approved of their landscaping variance. They did not meet their tree replacement requirements because it was such a heavily forested area. They exceeded their required plantings. If you were to go do a new development on a completely unlandscaped piece of property, you'd have a certain amount of requirements. They exceeded that requirements. They just did not meet their replacement requirements. So council approved that variance as well. And without any questions, that concludes Mr. Williams' presentation on the council meeting.
Item number 5, public hearing. Conduct a public hearing on a rezone request for property located at 629 West Cameron and 633 West Cameron from C2 zoning classification to R1C zoning classification. And as I told Ben, I got some people asking me what was going on. And I had to study a little bit to understand a residential commercial. So go ahead, Ben, lay it on us.
Well, I will go more in detail when we actually get to the item. This is just a public hearing that's required by
Yeah,
state law
that's
to
right.
have.
State the time you open the public hearing, please.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and open the public hearing at 1:40. Any comments?
Staff has not received any comments for or against the rezone.
Since no one else is here, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing at 1:41. Okay, action items. Review and approve the minutes from the meeting on November 5, 2024. You said it was under your green tab? It's the second tab back.
Thought there was different colors.
I know, that's why we quit saying colors. We're doing second tab back.
These should all match today.
Oh, they are? Coordinated? Whoa. I'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll
On the
second.
third day of December 2024.
Motion made, motion seconded. All those in favor, right hand. Motion made, seconded, and carries. Receive the monthly code enforcement report.
So if you can recall, we go by fiscal for our code enforcement report. So you'll see that we're currently at 11 trash and debris cases, 9 high grass cases, and then 3 other cases, which is typically property maintenance violations. The breakdown of those cases, 10 of them are closed out and completed. 2 are currently in court because they have ran out of the adequate time to clean up their property. And then 11 are open because they still have time before they'll have to talk to the judge. Now, I will note on this report, you may remember from last time that there was a voided column. And so, to more adequately reflect that, I've gone in and I've looked at those cases that were voided due to not having mailing addresses and see if they were completed. And almost all of them were completed. There were no outstanding. So just because we don't have a mailing address, someone's still taking care of the property. Code enforcement just doesn't know who that person is, and neither does the county tax office at the moment. So if you look at the total numbers, I've removed the void number. So with that, we have 1,149 cases completed since 2021 when staff was tasked to do proactive code enforcement. 16 are currently in court, and then the 11 that you saw on the previous page are still open. And with that, I'll field any questions you may have.
And that closes out our 2024.
Well, we're in 25 fiscal now. So this
Right.
is, we're in month 2 of the 25 fiscal because October was the first month. This is your November report. And so we're not in high grass season at the moment. And code enforcement's time has been tasked in some other areas, so the numbers aren't quite up there. But a lot of people are keeping up with their property currently. I don't know if it's because it's the holiday season or if community pride is spreading, but we appreciate it.
Probably lack of rain since August.
Well, I mean more for trash. Usually our trash numbers come up this time of year.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Especially because, Christmas, you start buying things and you put it out by the curb and things. But people have been keeping up with their properties for the most part. It's been.
Excellent. Good report. Any questions?
I just have a comment. I think being that a lot of enforcement and conversations were had about the cleanup and all that was going on, and the grass, as far as y'all keeping them on their jobs of keeping their land clean, I think that has a lot to do with it. People are starting to take more pride in their land, so good job on y'all.
Thank you.
Action item C, receive the Development Services Department report.
So in the month of November, we've issued 4 building permits, 8 electrical permits, 2 HVAC, and 7 plumbing. We've only issued 1 new home permit, which is on Houston Street. And so the homeowner is doing that project himself, so it's a $91,000 estimate value from himself. I imagine the home's going to be significantly more than that, probably around the 150 to 200 range. And then on the breakdown of that,
What's the advantage of declaration? Is there any advantage to declare this or that number?
well, in the past, building permits used to be valued off of your valuation. They since took that away from residential. You can no longer do that anymore. And so from our perspective, it's simply a a tool used to see how much people are investing in your community. So the newspapers, we send that out to them weekly and monthly of how much people are investing. Commercial, you can still do it on valuation, and you can actually get those numbers. I believe it's one of the ICC codes talks about it, and if you're doing this project, this is going to be your range typically. So if somebody comes in and lowballs you on I can build this for 5,000, and that code's saying it's 10 to 20, then you know that they're not telling you the truth. But residential is different. It's no longer you can require them to pay a certain permit fee based on a percentage of that. And so that's why you'll see.
So there was nothing coming from Cornerstone then in this period?
No. Cornerstone is built out to what they've applied for. So I think that number is 51. They have 51 building permits and they have 51 certificate of occupancies.
That was phase one?
Well,
Approximately? Yeah.
They're still in 1A, according to building permit wise. They still have, I think, maybe 40% of those lots still to go, if I'm remembering correctly. In 1A, we've accepted their infrastructure that they've installed for 1C, and so they still have 1B and 1C to go, and it's moving slower than expected, but I expect them to turn up that key in January, because I believe they were telling us that new home season is about March, when people start looking to buy new homes. And if you look at their numbers, that's when they pulled their most building permits, was from March to July. And then they slowed down and completed them all.
And did we get a good feel for when the Texas Street project may start?
If everything goes according to plan, they want to start construction on the infrastructure in March. And they probably it'll be 2026 before they start building homes.
Oh, okay. So then all the permits were existing city remodels, I guess, or?
Right. The other building permits are from other improvements such as roofing, remodels, fencing, things of that nature. Smaller, not new homes. But there is one new home coming to your community. It's replacing an existing home, so it's not necessarily a new address. But it's replacing a mobile home, and it's going to be a site-built home, so that is a positive.
Oh, that is a positive, I think. Yeah. All right, questions?
What did you say? Which development was going to be built in 2026?
That's the Republic Ridge,
Okay.
the one that you saw on Texas Street.
Yeah.
That's their projected so far. And so you'll start to see their plats come through in phases when they're getting ready to, when they've installed that infrastructure and are getting ready to go for a building permit, because you'll have a final plat for each section before they can get building permits. So you'll know when they're getting close.
Any further questions? So now we get to the thing I jumped the gun on. Action item D, consider and take any necessary action on a recommendation to the city council regarding a rezone request for property located at 629 West Cameron, property ID 13364, and 633 West Cameron, property ID 13069, to change the zoning classification from C2 commercial intents to R1C residential 1 commercial.
So this is two properties, as Mr. Williams has said. And so one is actually for a home program house that's happening for Mr. Cortez. If you can recall him, he's been approved by the state. And so we need to get the zoning corrected so that way they can build on that lot if necessary. We may be switching lots with him so he gets a house on a safer lot, so that way he does not have to back out on the highway anymore. But in case that does not go through, we do not want to waste any time, because we have a certain time frame to get this done. And so we're moving this forward. If the lot swap does not happen, then we will get this zoning approved. If it does happen, then the zoning is not necessary. So this is a backup plan. So now the other property with them is Neal's Berry on the corner. And so what this zoning is doing, they're currently zoned for commercial intents. We have in our zoning ordinance that allows for what's called R1C, or residential, single-family, commercial. And so if you can think of home occupation type of uses, that's what it's essentially doing. It's a mixed use. You can have a single-family structure and have a work office in there with no more than 2 employees, or you can have a single-family structure and another structure for offices, again, no more than 2 employees. So it's going to be a very small commercial use. And so the reason staff's recommending that is 2 reasons. One, it avoids spot zoning because you're getting first 2 properties in there with you. Second, it's a similar enough use to the commercial that's next to it. That way it wouldn't be just such a differing use. And then the other reason is I've included 2 sheets for you from the comp plan, because as we move forward with zone changes and things like that, you always need to refer to your comp plan to see what your citizens have said they wanted for their future land use. And so if you look at the future land use map, there's an area in blue. That dark blue is a mixed use corridor, and you can see both of their properties fall within that mixed use corridor type of use. And so that's why staff would recommend an R1C zoning that would get you to a mixed use, acknowledge the current use on the ground, so that way they would be in compliance with zoning standards.
And it brings the other residences through here in compliance also, if we,
Just those 2 properties. So the ones that are along Austin are still going to be out of zoning compliance. They would be legal non-conforming use, if you can recall that. They're not a part of this. But as far as Mr. Cortez and Mr. Berry's property, they would bring them back into compliance of how they're using it today.
any other pushback on that we should be aware of?
Staff has not received any comments from any citizens, and we've also discussed with both property owners, and they were both in favor of getting their property into compliance. And again, Mr. Cortez may be moving to a different property, and so if that were to happen, then this would no longer be needed. But this is our safety net to make sure that we can get this house done, since this has been such a community effort to get this done. And thanks to Mr. Starnes for a lot of the effort you put into it.
And this is the initial R1C as far as beginning mixed use, right?
Yeah. R1C, currently no properties are zoned as R1C, so this is a first for you guys. It's a tool that we have not used, that we have in our back pocket if we need to use, and it's truly a mixed use type of zoning.
But brings us in alignment with the master plan.
It would. If you were to zone it that way, it would. You know, there's multiple ways you can do mixed use. This is just one of those ways that would acknowledge the current use on the ground.
Are you open for questioning?
So, I guess my concern is what happens 3, 4, 5 years from now when someone wants to put a fast food restaurant on the corner where Neil's is? I mean, does this, we would have to rezone?
You had to go for another zone change. If they wanted to use a more intense commercial, they would essentially ask for another zone change to revert back.
Would revert to what it is, and that's part of the driving factor also. In addition to the safety factor there, the question was raised, is it really the highest and best use if you were able to assemble that piece of property with, as an example, with Mr. Berry's property or one of the adjacent properties, you know, could you have a nice pad site for a commercial development, which would be a better use of that right on 79, which it probably is, and that's why we are exploring the land swap with him to allow him to build his home program house on another street that is currently zoned residential.
But if we don't do that, then it slows down the process for getting a new home here, correct? Because it's not zoned.
Right. If we could not do a lot swap, the current zoning doesn't allow a home to go on there.
Yeah.
And so we would need to get it rezoned if that were to go through.
By lot swap, you mean a lot that the city already owns, if
Yes.
they would,
So we own a couple lots on Pine. We've met with the Cortez family, and they would be happy to move to either one of those lots. And so we're moving forward with one of the lots that they've approved on. And It's zoned for single family. It would get them off of the highway. Because the main concern is them backing up on the highway. And the new home that's being built will not prevent them from backing up on the highway because it's such a narrow lot.
Yeah.
There's not a way for them to not.
At this point, it looks favorable. We still have to get approval from the state to do this land swap, but it looks favorable that it's gonna be approved. If it's not approved, we're right now scheduled to start construction, I think, in January, if the zoning is changed. If the land swap is approved, it pushes that construction back about a month to the new lot. And if this is approved, if this gets approved by the Plan Commission, it would go to council next Monday for a first reading. And then in January, at the January meeting for a second reading and approval. And we'll know before the second reading whether that's gonna get approved by the state. If it is approved by the state, then our recommendation is will be to council to not approve it.
But it brings the other property into compliance as it's being used currently, beside the property we're
It does.
currently talking about.
Right now, it's legally non-conforming. So
Yeah.
It's not out of compliance, it's just.
Yeah,
It's legally non-conforming.
yeah.
You know, ideally, I think the idea is the city would prefer that whole stretch be developed commercially eventually. So, it could continue as a house in perpetuity. The only issue might be is if they ever go to sell that house and somebody that's buying it is trying to get financing from the bank, I've had situations where a bank has balked at providing financing if it's zoned that way.
Insurance also, right? If-
Well, because of the
Catastrophic.
fact that if it burns down, they may not be able to get a permit to rebuild a home.
Yeah. Ben, give us a recommendation of staff again, one more time.
So staff would recommend approval, and then as Mr. Kelty said, we'll wait for notification from the state. Upon that second reading, we should have that, and then if we can do the lot swap, which fingers crossed we can, then we will essentially recommend council to not approve the second reading so it wouldn't take effect. If the lot swap falls through, then we'll have this as a backup. So that way we can hit our timeline. Because Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have till March to move forward on getting Mr. Cortez a home, or he would have to reapply.
Correct.
Question. If you were to lot swap, the city would gain the house that he's living in right now, right, in that property, that the roof is sinking, and then probably clear it out.
Yeah, so the house is going to be demoed, and that's going to come at the this part of the home program. We've discussed this with them, and so that house is going to be demoed no matter what.
Okay.
It's just a matter of where that new house is being built. If it's going to be built back on that lot, or if it's going to be built on one of the lots on Pine.
Okay, so it can be built over there. It's just more dangerous off the highway. So we're trying to get it in another spot.
It can only be rebuilt there if we change the zone.
Yeah. And so that's
Okay.
how we're moving forward with this zoning piece. Is if in case Pine falls through and he has to build on Cameron, we would get the adequate zoning so we can issue a building permit for him to build.
Okay, so he can't be built. He can't be built on right now unless we change this.
Well, I'd like to make the motion that we approve this rezone and direct it to city council
I'll second.
for approval.
So we have a motion made and seconded that we accept and pass on to city council. All those in favor? Raise your right hand.
I'm gonna oppose it. I'm really feeling sticky about commercial. I would probably vote if it was necessary, but I'm sort of as a protest to keep that whole commercial.
So it's 3-1 vote. That's all that I have on my agenda. Did you have anything else you wanted?
No, just get the word out that we're looking for board members, if you don't mind. If there's anybody that express interest, send them my way or Shana's way, and we will try to convince them to join.
And just so Tim knows, I did contact a radio station and told them to put it on the bulletin board that we're looking for commissioners.
Thank you.
So, with that being said, it's 2:00 on the wall. I go ahead and adjourn the meeting of Tuesday, December the 3rd of the Rockdale